Hi folks, I'm Chuck Black. We're talking about how not to become a good programmer. The lesson for last week was copying and pasting somebody else's code. The lesson for this week is copying and pasting your own code, which you may think is okay, but in reality, it's a very, very bad idea. And in the next couple minutes, you'll learn why. So we talked in the last lesson how copying and pasting somebody else's code is not a good idea, even if that person whose code you copy is extremely intelligent and good looking. But what about your own code? It should be okay to copy and paste your own code, right? Wrong. Let me show you why. So let me explain and demonstrate why this is a bad idea to copy and paste in your own code. Now, in a very early lesson, L02 devices, I wrote this code that I'm highlighting right here that actually creates a list of random devices which have vendor and OS and version and things, IP address, things of that nature. So it does this, and it does it exactly the way that I wanted it to for this particular lesson that I was doing. Now, as we went through to other lessons, such as functions and modules, comparisons, nested data, lists versus dictionaries, and many others, I ended up using this whole idea of created devices. Now, I could very easily have just come in here, selected this, and done a copy, and then pasted it into my code, and then it would have worked just fine. And that would have been okay for a little while. But what if happens if after I had done that in, let's say, 12 different places, and in fact, if we were to look at this and see how many times I did it, you can see there's a number of places in all of this code where I do this thing here I'm calling a function called create devices. So I didn't do copy and paste in the real world. But if I hadn't, I would have been relying on this code in functions and modules and printing and listed dictionaries, even as far up as doing object-oriented stuff in tuples and generators. So what would have happened then if I came through here and I found a bug? Oops, I would have had to change that bug in 12 different locations. That would make me decide to do a function and not copy and paste code immediately. Another thing would be, what if I wanted to make an enhancement? And in fact, I ended up making at least one enhancement to this where I added not only the number of devices, but the number of subnets. And this is, you see the function that I created in order to do this. And I continue to enhance this. Everybody that uses it gets to benefit from the fact that I have made these changes and made it better. So you can see, hopefully quite obviously, and in a very large way, you do not want to copy and paste your own code. That is something that will identify you as somebody who really doesn't know what they're doing. So please avoid copying and pasting code. So before I let you go, I want to let you in on a little secret, which I'm not terribly proud of. You may know and have heard me talk about Quokka Prime. That probably leads you to believe, was there an original Quokka? If you've been around with me, then you know that there was an original Quokka, an implementation that I did originally, and I have used 52 weeks of Python, and at the end of 52 weeks of Python, I created out of the stuff that we did in the class a version of Quokka that I call Quokka Prime. And when I did that, I was able to improve and refactor the work that I had done for these workers, which do packet capture, port scan, and traceroute. And I had sort of quickly and in the not most optimal manner replicated code in my capture, port scan, and traceroute functionality that I could have consolidated. So when I got a second chance to do it, which I did in Quokka Prime, I was able to consolidate that and do common stuff like receiving messages on RabbitMQ, doing stuff with it, etc. It made the code much better because I was able to consolidate it, and I didn't do copying and pasting, or a better way of putting it is I improved and got rid of the copy and pasting that I had done and replaced it with functions and common code. So please don't do copy and pasting. I got lucky. I got a second chance to write this, and I was able to improve it. In the real world, quite often you won't be able to have the time to rework your code, refactor it in order to improve it and get rid of the copy and paste stuff. So yeah, learn from me. And in fact, that's going to be a lesson on how not to become a good programmer, having to do with the fact that if you say, I will fix it in a later version, quite often you don't get a chance to fix it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Remember, don't copy and paste your own code. Thanks for listening.